Dev Hines, aka Blood Orange. Um, we reviewed Negro Swan last year, and we really liked it. And I think we were taken aback by the artistry of it and the way that Dev Hines was able to really like meld these songs together and make this one very singular feeling piece of art that was still flourishing in so many different in so many different ways, throughout, and it had these really interesting arrangements and just musicianry throughout. Then he drops Angel's Pulse this past weekend as a mixtape, and a guy that before was dropping projects every couple of years seemed to really want to like give people time to think about these things. Now dropping another project 1 year after his last one. What do you think of this new mixtape in comparison to Negro Swan?
Yeah, it's interesting just because he doesn't have any mixtapes to this point. He just has those 3 albums. And yeah, when I heard that, and I also heard it explicitly labeled as a mixtape, something most people don't actually do these days, I was like, oh, this is an interesting way to communicate expectations and artistic intent in a way most artists don't think about these days. So we've talked about that before. I was very intrigued because, again, it's Blood Orange. It's Dev Hines. He's not,
right,
putting out 30 songs a year or anything like that. Hearing him talk about it, he did do a fair bit of press. He talked to Craig Jenkins and a lot of other people about this. He's calling it like an afterword to Negro Swan, which I find very interesting because I didn't really think about Negro Swan that much at all while listening to Angel's Pulse. I thought it was definitely a different listen, in a positive way, at least for me. But yeah, very, very unexpected. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, speaking of Craig Jenkins' article, I felt like he really described the album or this mixtape in a way that summarized it really well. It feels like you're listening to a radio, and it kind of like flicks in between songs quickly. That a lot of the songs don't. I think that there's a similarity to them, but a lot of songs feel very singular. Feel like there's not necessarily like a cohesiveness to the album as there was with Negro Swan, but that almost works to allow some more interesting things to come through. And I do get that sense like you don't know what's coming up next, but it's going to be something that you want to listen to, or they're going to flick the station pretty quickly anyway. What songs on here stood out to you? You said that you liked this a little bit more than Negro, or at least like it stood out to you in a better way than Negro Swan.
Yeah. So I think what I liked about Angel's Pulse is that it was much more accessible later listen than a lot of his past work, which definitely just deals with a lot of more serious themes. And not to say that this is totally frivolous or anything, but I just thought maybe it's that radio vibe that was intended. I'm not sure, but it just sounded like it flowed in just a simpler way. And I just kind of connected with that a little bit. I think partially there's a lot of features on this.
Yeah.
Dev feels like he's just kind of hanging out with the homies in a lot of instances here. But in a good way. Like I think track 3, Dark and Handsome with Toro Imoy, that song.
Yeah.
I love that song a lot. You have Justine Skye on here twice. You have Tinashe on here twice. And then, Gold Teeth with Project Pat and Gangsta Boo and Tinashe. I was like, wow, shit. You wouldn't have heard this on Negro Swan. Let's put it that way. It just wouldn't fit. But it was still a cool song to hear. It's interesting to hear Dev vocally be like one of the main voices on a song. I feel like usually when he collaborates with people in the past, he's kind of been the background vocal or more of an arranger. He's not always like tag teaming a song with someone. So it was kind of cool to hear him do that with a lot of the guests on this. I was also very surprised to hear Joba from Brockhampton.
On Take It Back.
Yeah, I can't remember any other Joba features outside the Brockhampton sphere to this point. And I wasn't looking at my phone I wasn't on my phone when it popped up, and I did like the eyebrow raise gif. I was like, oh shit, how about that? That's cool. But yeah, even Dark and Handsome, he shouts out the people he lost in 18. Everyone's saying that's a reference to Mac Miller, who he had previously collaborated with. So yeah, I don't. Obviously, this doesn't have the ambition, the lyrical ambition of Negro Swan. And that's pretty obvious. He's didn't really try and say otherwise. But I think it still sounds really cool. And because it's Dev Hynes, it just has like a high bar because the musical choices he makes are just unique in general. So, and what do you think? The presence of guests, the lighter tone of it all. What do you think?
Yeah, well, Negro Swan talked a lot about identity, and it talked a lot about um, the struggles of that and how there's a bleakness to it. And this one, this album was so much lighter, like you already said, that it just was kind of a lot lighter to listen to. I felt like I was kind of floating through it and really able to like sink into the songs rather than kind of weighing the intellectual heaviness of something like Negro Swan. And I really like the features. I think they kind of brought out the best of Dev Hynes, especially Take It Back and Dark and Handsome, like you already pointed out. I think those two songs are just fantastic. I mean, Blood Orange at this point, and Dev Hynes just as a musical person in general, feels like he's really establishing himself as one of the most interesting artists out there. Only because I can't really think of a peer to him that sounds the way he does.
Steve Lacy wants to be Dev Hynes.
Yeah,
not there yet.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I think the internet altogether might be able to kind of channel that, but Dev is just such a a singular talent at this point. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting, and you got to hit that subscribe button to the Dev Hynes train because there's going to be some great stuff coming. We're going to put a couple of songs that sounds like Dark and Handsome and Take It Back. We'll probably make it onto our 2019 best of 2019 on Spotify. Any last thoughts on this before we wrap up and head to your guy Ed Sheeran?
Yeah, don't you dare. Yeah, I just hope people don't miss it just because it was kind of a surprise announcement. There wasn't any singles as far as I know. And yeah, like 11 months later, probably people aren't looking for it if they're already fans. So make sure you spread the word on this one.